Climate Change and Transportation, a presentation by Fernando Coleman, Kenny Nonso Anyakwo, and Connor Selke.
Climate change is a change in global or regional climate patterns. Climate change in recent years has stemmed from human activity. The Industrial Revolution paved a way to many new innovations through the use of fossil fuels. However, fossil fuels produce greenhouse gas emissions. The problem is overproduction of these greenhouse gases. The structure of greenhouse gases traps heat from the sun, therefore increasing global temperatures. As a result, the oceans get warmer. 50% of the oxygen on Earth comes from oceans. Side effects of this include ocean acidification, carbon dioxide reacting to salt water. Another side effect is endangering sea wildlife because of the increasing temperatures. Glaciers melt, which cause rising sea levels, which in turn causes increasing flooding in coastal regions. The increased temperature also causes things like heat waves and tornadoes to happen.
In order to address the problem of climate change, we propose a three-step solution. The first is to increase the availability and convenience of public transportation. The second is to increase the investment in zero-emission vehicle infrastructure and manufacturing, such as Teslas and hybrid cars. We should also inform the public about the effectiveness and the need for greener vehicles. So, how do we go implementing this at a national level? There's three things we have to do. We have to increase federal funding for public transport. According to a national poll, 82% of Americans already believe that the country will be greatly benefited by an expanded and improved public transportation system. So, we can actually do this without increasing the federal budget by moving money away from the highway expansion system that we already have in place and moving it towards public transport. The highway expansion has already been in insolvency for the last few years and has required several diversion of federal transit funds to keep it afloat. Increasing funding for public transport would also greatly help more rural communities where many people still don't have personal vehicles but still need a way to get to their jobs and move around. Buses and light rails can be easily implemented in such rural areas. Second thing we have to do is we have to increase government subsidies for green vehicle research. The electric car and hybrid car are still pretty new technologies that still need lots of time and R&D so they can be more cost efficient. But something we can do to speed up the program is to expand programs like the Clean Vehicle Assistance Program, which give grants to low-income citizens to purchase an EV vehicle. If these companies that are producing these greener products are seeing that more consumers want those products, they will automatically invest more into research, which will make them better and which will make them even more greener. We should also expand federal programs that are already in place, like the National Clean Diesel Campaign, which aims to reduce pollution emitted from diesel engines through the implementation of varied control strategies and the involvement of national, state, and local partners. Third thing, probably most important, we have to spread information about less polluting transportation. We take one simple fact, which is that congestion wasted an estimated 2.3 billion gallons of gasoline in 2003. So, a lot of people don't really care that those 2.3 billion gallons are polluting the planet and are causing climate change. But if we instead convince them that they are losing money, because they really are, if you sit in traffic and you're running your car, you're one of those 2.3 billion gallons of gasoline that are being lost. That's money that you can save. If we inform the public through a national propaganda campaign of facts like the one I just said, the public might realize that even they are losing money by propping this immense amount of polluting transportations. We also need to aim to reduce the belief that electric cars are just as bad as motor cars. A lot of people have this belief because they think that electric cars still need electricity, which they do, and that electricity is the same amount of carbon emissions as motor vehicles, which is not true at all. So, now that we know a way of implementing the solutions at a national level, what is the social, economic, and political challenges of greener transportation? Let's start with the social. As I talked about earlier, rural areas have less public transportation systems. As we can see here, we can see both buses and rails. If we see over to the north right, we see that there's lots of public transportation systems. Meanwhile, in the Midwest, there is nothing. There are still people who live here that still need to get to their jobs and still be a beneficial part of the economy. So, if we increase public transport, this will actually help the economy of those states. Pretty good thing. An economical thing that we have to be aware of. Just look at this. In the first column, we have how much money it costs to go about per mile on the bus. The second is to be a commuter, which is to have several people in one car or be on a hybrid rail. The third is for individual. It's just you in your car going to your work or going to your job or whatever. The second is the heavy rail. These are like the metro or the subway. And the last one is the light rail and the streetcar, which is less common but still something that we need to be worried about. What's interesting about this graph is we see at the bottom row here is the cost per passenger mile. Look how it compares all of the other four to the demand response, the individual car. It is so much less money. People are losing this money. This is money that everyone can be saving by using public transportation. Another great benefit of using greener vehicles and greener transportation. Now finally, political. Did you know that transportation ballots pass at twice the rate of all other ballot measures? I mean, it makes sense. Not a lot of people are going to go vote against public transportation because there's not really a lot of downsides. 70% is the average approval rate for the public transportation ballot measures over the last 10 years, and it's actually been increasing since 2006.
So, why transport emissions? Transportation accounts for 28% of the GHG emissions according to the EPA. This includes freight trucks, aircraft, and boats. But most importantly, it includes light-duty vehicles or personal vehicles like cars or trucks. As such, if we limit our transportation emissions, we can significantly impact our greenhouse gas emission. Why use regulation? The technology that we need already exists, but companies don't use it. Why? Because it's not optimal. It requires development, it requires integration, and quite honestly, they don't want to use it because nobody's making them use it. It's been proven time and time again that the EPA regulations have been necessary for change within the industry. They forced the change from leaded to unleaded fuels. They put cleaners in tailpipes of cars. They required them to show gas mileage for automobiles. All of these factors have greatly increased our ability to save the environment and protect ourselves and everybody around us from the smog that we saw through the Industrial Revolution and such. The slowly increasing standards of the EPA with things like the Clean Air Act fueled progress in clean automobiles until 2016, where their progress has been largely stymied. As such, we need something to keep it moving because we've come this far, but we haven't come this far to stay this far. We need to keep moving and progressing so that our generation and the next one and the one after that still have what they need to live healthy and free lives. Our potential challenges mainly comes in the form of pushback. Pushback from fossil fuel companies because, of course, anything that damages their margins, they're against. Nothing against them for that. Pushback from car manufacturers for much the same reason. New technology integration requires development and money, and they don't want to spend that if they don't have to. And finally, public perception of electric vehicles. As we talked about earlier in this presentation, electric vehicles are seen as much more unreliable due to a lack of major infrastructure and their relative newness to the market. But given a chance to develop and a way to refine public image, they're fantastic alternatives, especially with the surge in green, all natural ways to produce energy, solar, wind, all sorts of ways that don't even require the burning of coal or oil. Thank you for coming to our presentation.